Good evening. Welcome, everybody. Peace be on you. I am Sarah Jamil from Compassionate York Region. My team and I, you should be able to see who we are here. We welcome you to this evening that we've really been waiting for. We have not gathered in virtually for a while, so it's nice to start our online community conversations with a very special guest. And before we start with that quick introduction of who we are, Compassionate York Region launched in the fall of 2021. And we're a group of 5-6 women, mostly here in Richmond Hill. And then we have Susan from Thornhill. And we basically felt we needed to do something about social cohesion and sense of community in our city and our region. So we started having conversations, and conversations have led to many, many great things.
I can't hear.
Okay, just leave it.
The conversations have led to many great accomplishments over the past year. And so we're looking forward to another great year, starting off with our special guest tonight. And so I invite you to use the chat tonight for any comments, questions you would have, and also to please mute yourselves when you're not speaking, so that our recording is as clean as possible. Thank you. And then I'd like to invite Sherry to open up with a blessing, please. Thank you.
We begin our virtual gathering by respectfully acknowledging our presence on the traditional territories and ancestral lands and waters of the original stewards, the Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Anishinaabe. We realize the York region is a colonial boundary that is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty, signed with many Mississauga and Chippewa bands. We recognize that we are here as uninvited guests, as settlers, and that we are all treaty people bound by the responsibility to honor and heal our relations with each other. We pray that beloved Creator help us recognize our common humanity, interconnection, and interdependence.
Thank you, Sherry. And then Marge, you have a few
just very briefly.
Yeah.
If I can ask everyone to, if you don't receive our regular email blasts, if you could put your email in the chat, we'd appreciate it. We'd really love to be able to keep in touch with you. And we're also wondering where all of you are from. So I know there's a couple here off on holidays and have tuned in. Yes, Susan. But if you are, let us know where you're from. It's always interesting to see where this virtual meeting gathers people from. So thank you. Okay, so we're going to have Susan, or was it David next?
Oh, we would like to invite our mayor of Richmond Hill,
okay.
David West, to welcome Mayor Carter from Oshawa.
Thank you so much, everybody. And Mayor Carter, I am very pleased to welcome you virtually to our fine city of Richmond Hill, all the way from your fine city of Oshawa. And I look very much forward to meeting you in person. I don't think we've actually ever met in 3 dimensions, but it's great to certainly meet you in 2 dimensions. And I'm really pleased and honored that you would be coming to speak to this fine group today. They're a very hardworking and mighty group, and I think they're getting larger, not individually, collectively, every day. And I think that they're, on the verge of doing even better things than they've done in the past. And I really appreciate you sharing your story. And I was thrilled to be invited to be here today to both welcome you and to hear your talk. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, David. I'll now pass it over to Susan to introduce Dan.
Thank you, Marge. The theme of tonight's talk is ordinary actions have extraordinary impact. And I'm delighted and honored to introduce our presenter tonight, Mayor Dan Carter. It's a real privilege. He was elected 2018 in Oshawa, re-elected in 2022. Mayor Carter is serving his second term as mayor of Oshawa. Before becoming Oshawa's mayor, he served as a city and regional councillor. The mayor is an ex officio member of all city standing committees. At the region of Durham, he currently serves as a member of the Health and Social Services Committee and is also on the Police Services Board. Active in community development activities, Mayor Carter lends his time to many philanthropic endeavors and has a deep commitment to making a difference to those in need. He takes his role as mayor of Oshawa to heart, feels blessed that he has been given a second term to serve and help people in the community. He is committed to leading in a way that will bring out the best in all of us and be the light that brings hope, optimism to all of our communities. On a personal note, I heard Mayor Carter speak about 4 years ago, and his talk was engaging, compassionate, and had so much to offer about making our communities more inclusive and welcoming. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what he has to share with us tonight. And let's give a warm round of applause to Mayor Carter.
Thank you very much, Susan. David, great to be able to see you, and I look forward to meeting with you face to face. And to everyone, thank you for your invitation to be able to join you tonight. I hope I don't disappoint you. That introduction, if I was smart, I would just say good night, thank you very much, and walk away, right? So all it could do is go downhill from here. But ordinary actions or extraordinary results are something that I think all of us try to do. And it's amazing right at this particular time, as we are a country, as we are a nation, as we are communities, we're seeing throughout the nation people that want to divide us, bring darkness in, that they want to get us fearful and angry and really kind of drum up that they want to divide us as a nation. I think David would agree with this, that this is a moment that we need our communities to come together. We need to bring the best out of us. We need to not allow the darkness to come into our community, and we should not allow those that want to divide us, don't give us the opportunity to do so. We accomplish so much together, and it's when we work together, when we have compassion, understanding, empathy, gratitude, and generosity, that we can accomplish great things together. And as you look at our nation right at this particular time, we have difficult, complex issues. I know that David is dealing with it, just like many mayors across the country, as a matter of fact, across North America, with not only a housing crisis, but an unsheltered crisis, a mental health crisis, and the worst addiction crisis that I think our country has ever seen. And I'm going to make a couple of recommendations if this fascinates you in regards to the opiate crisis that's going on right now. There's a few areas that I'll make a recommendation. One is there's a really good book that you should read. It's called San Francisco. It talks about a study in regards to San Francisco versus Chicago and New York. It talks about the different approaches, and it's a fascinating read that really gives people an insight in regards to this crisis that's happening. Number two is I would suggest, if you have a streaming service on Netflix, there's a series that's 6 parts, an hour long. It is called Dope Sick. It is a docudrama that Michael Keaton is in. It really gives you a real good insight in regards to how this crisis started and what has transpired. And I'll be very honest with you. I know that David and his team and mayors across this country are trying to work together with healthcare professionals and the best practices across the nation to be able to find a way of being able to save those that are addicted to the most potent drugs that we've ever seen on our streets. And the destruction it's doing in our community, the destruction that it's doing in families, and the death count continues to grow. This particular year, Canada will see over 10,000 individuals lose their life directly in regards to the opiate crisis. And we need to find solutions and ideas, because the reality being is everybody on this call, and I'm going to presume that you either have friends or family or know someone, or that you have heard of someone at your workplace that is struggling with somebody they love deeply, that is struggling in regards to their addiction. And on top of it, because of their addiction, they're also seeing huge impacts in regards to their mental health. And in some circumstances, you're seeing individuals that were great providers and contributors to society no longer able to do so. And we have to try everything we possibly can to be able to find a pathway forward. And mayors across the country are struggling in regards to trying to do the right thing at the right time to make sure that we have the right results. You know, the reason why I'm so deeply connected to this item, and I don't know if you know, but I am the mayor for the great city of Oshawa. I've been blessed to be elected in 2018 and then once again in 2022. But before that, the headline in 2018, when I became mayor, the headline said, "Homeless man becomes mayor." Now, I just want to clarify something for you. I was not homeless at that moment. Somebody just didn't walk by and say, "Listen, you got anything going right now?" I said, "No, I got nothing on the schedule." They said, "Why don't you run for mayor?" That didn't happen at all. But I had an experience in my life because of my addiction and mental health that took me to homelessness, to living on the streets, begging for money, mentally, emotionally, physically, and financially broken. As we look across the nation and we look at these individuals that are suffering, and many of us have seen the pictures from Vancouver where you see individuals that are just so broken on the streets, you pause and wonder yourself, what is it? What happened? What are the things that affected their lives so deeply that they now find themselves so broken? What I can tell you is when I tell my story about being homeless, about being addicted to alcohol and drugs, with struggling with depression and mental health issues, I always say to people, when you see those individuals on our streets that are so broken, they look like me. They look exactly like me because I'm somebody's kid. And I'm an individual that comes from a great family that had my struggles early in life. And the result was that I have an addictive personality. And because of circumstances, I found myself in a position for over 17 years battling addiction and mental health. I always like to kind of take you a little bit back because I think it's really important that you understand the kind of chronological aspects. I was born in the 1960s. I'm not going to tell you what year because you'll probably guess how old I am anyways. But I was the last child of 7 children that was born to a family in St. John's, New Brunswick named the Robinsons. And my mother passed away when I was just a small infant. And at that particular time, the last child of 7, fathers didn't bring up small infants. And therefore, I was put into the care of the Children's Aid Society. And I found myself going to different houses and different places as an infant in regards to people would kind of test drive you for a couple of weeks. They'd try you for a week and then send you back. And it just happened that I ended up at Charlie and Isabel Carter's home in Agincourt, Ontario. And the reason why I ended up at their home is because Isabel and Charlie Carter had fostered 22 foster babies. They were both veterans of the Second World War, had started their homestead in Agincourt, and they were part of the foster parent program. And their specialty was just to look after infants. And I was one of the infants that ended up on their doorstep. And in 1962, Charlie and Isabel Carter, I still hadn't been adopted. And Charlie and Isabel Carter stepped in and said, you can't be bouncing this child all over the place. He's going to end up being quite severely affected if this continues. And they had 3 children of their own. They had Michael, Maureen, and David. And they, I think, were quite happy with their 3 children. But they truly believed they had to do something in regards to my life. And therefore, what happened was they adopted me in 1962 on Valentine's Day, believe it or not. And I became, from Daniel John Robinson, I became Daniel John Carter. And I was blessed to be able to be brought up in a great Christian home, steady. My father worked in the federal government. My mother stayed home. She still cared for little infants in regards to the Children's Aid Society and looking after their 3 children. And, it was a wonderful environment that I was brought into. But certain things happen in my life. I always say that I would never want anybody to experience what I went through in my life. And for a long period of time, I thought that I was being punished for something. And what I didn't realize throughout my life is I was being prepared. I'll make the case a little bit later, but that's how I interpret it. When I was very, very young, I went off to school just like my brothers and sisters. And unfortunately, in the 1960s, when you went to school, teachers were right and students were wrong, and parents listened to teachers. And I had a severe learning disability that was not identified when I went to school. And unfortunately, therefore, I was not entitled to be in the classroom. And therefore, most of my early years in school were spent out in the hallway. And I always like to say that, I failed grade 1 and I failed grade 2 and a grade 3 and failed grade 4. Matter of fact, I was the oldest kid in grade 4. I used to drive myself to school. I was the only guy that had my own parking spot in grade 4, and hung out with the teachers in the smoking lounge because I was quite large at that particular time. But it was a real difficult journey. And matter of fact, later in life, I was diagnosed that I had dyslexia, just a learning disability that millions of people have struggled with, and other people have been able to be identified and also gone on to success. And I mean, you look at a guy like Tom Cruise, that he is also dyslexic, and he was able to be able to find his pathway forward. You'll find with dyslexic kids, they're very, very talented in some way, just like all children. But we do have different gifts, and academics was not one of them. But through that time, my parents could see early in my school years that I was really kind of withdrawing. And as you might find out this evening, is I like to talk a lot, and I'm very, communicative with people. I'd stop cars on the street and ask them where they're going and who they were and how much their car was and where they worked and where their family was. And I was starting to withdraw because the reason that when I went to school, I wasn't included in the classroom, and therefore I really didn't have a connection. And I grew very, very tall, matter of fact, through my early years of school years. But when I was about 7 years old, my parents thought it would be a really good idea for me to get a paper route. And where I lived at McCown and Shepherd, from McCown and Shepherd to Markham and Shepherd and down to the 401, there was only 14 houses. And I ended up delivering papers for the Telegram, an old newspaper that used to be delivered many, many years ago. And my father knew that I would enjoy it. By the way, it was one of the best jobs I ever had. Hot chocolate and cookies at every door. It didn't matter if you paid me for the papers, just give me the cookies. I was very happy about it. I don't know if David gets it, but I don't get chocolate chip cookies at my office. So we're trying to put that into a policy at this great city of Oshawa, by the way. David, you might want to try and do the same. But what happened was something that I never spoke about for about 30 years. And that was my father told me never to go into the gas station at Markham and Shepherd. And one day, just through frustration, my papers were blowing. I was cold. I was frustrated. I went into that gas station. And unfortunately, as a 7-year-old, I was raped. And I never spoke about my experience. But the scars and the impact that it had on my life was quite dramatic. And I didn't realize it until later in life what kind of dramatic impact that would have. I would say that my life has been one that has been tested and blessed. So I was blessed because of the reason that I was born. I was blessed because of the reason that I ended up in a great foster care place. And, I was tested because of the reason that I had dyslexia and a learning disability. And I was also tested when I was raped by that individual. And when I was turning 13 years old, my brother Michael, that was the oldest of Charlie and Isabel's kids, he was 28 years old, father of 3. He joined the police force when he was 17 as a cadet. And by the time he was 28, he was doing quite well in the police department. He was killed. And that was really devastating for me. And I couldn't really figure it out. My brother had always wanted to be a police officer, dreamed about being a police officer, and now seeing this young man dead, and I didn't really understand what it was all about. That impacted me tremendously. And that's when I was introduced to alcohol. And one of the great things about alcohol was that alcohol started to do things for me that I was desperately in need for. And that was, I wanted to be charismatic. I wanted to be liked. I wanted to be funny. I wanted all the things that I thought that I dreamed about. And I think in the beginning, when alcohol came into my life, I think it did exactly what I thought it would do. It gave me all those things, those false sense of narratives. But like any addiction, and if you have an addictive personality like I do, it started when I was 13 and it ended when I was 31, when I was mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, and spiritually broken. finding myself on the streets with no friends. My family contact was minimal. Trying to find a place to sleep on a nightly basis, broken relationships. I was a liar, a thief, and I was broken. And in 1991, my sister Maureen, that was a very successful businesswoman and really believed in me and had frequent contact throughout my addiction period of time because of the amount of impact that I would have on her and our family. I called her one morning because of the reason that I was so sick. I'm 6'2". I weigh 214 pounds. By the time I reached out to Maureen, I was still 6'2", but I was about 115 pounds, and I was pretty sick. And my sister, I told her that I was in a lot of trouble. I phoned her and said, I'm in a lot of trouble. I'm pretty sick. And my sister said to me, try and make it to our home. And I made it over to her home. And there's a lot of details in between, but I made it over to her home. And she said to me, Danny, you have two choices today. You have a choice to either sober up or you have a choice to die. And those are the two options you have today. And I remember standing there just so broken and breaking down in tears and really not knowing what I was going to do, except for I didn't want to die. And I was fortunate enough that I made the right decision. I said to my sister, I don't want to die. And she said, I want you to go get a shower and we're going to make arrangements for you to get into a treatment program. And I was fortunate enough through her kindness and compassion and generosity that I was able to enter into a program that really rebuilt my life. You know, I've been advocating, like many of us that have experienced addiction and mental health issues, that 28 days may take away the urge of alcohol or drugs, but it doesn't repair the brokenness that we have experienced throughout our lives. And we have to understand that this isn't just about taking away those substances. It's about dealing with the effects and the impacts of life and life in general. Now, many of you on this call have lost loved ones. Many of you have had your own struggles. Many of you may have had loved ones that have gone through the same thing. Many of you have had struggles. Let's face it, you do not get out of this life unscathed. All of us are going to be tested. It's how we deal with the testing. It's amazing what happens when people surround you that love you and care for you and have the experience to be able to help you find the pathway forward. But it is frustrating and it's disappointing and it lets us down sometimes. Now, I'm very fortunate that I've been sober since June the 17th, 1991, and I am still sober today. In May of 2000, one of the greatest challenges of my life was put in front of me when my sister Maureen, that was the one that saved my life, committed suicide. And I still, even to this day, struggle with the decision my sister made to end her life. And for a long period of time, I really didn't know where to put it. I didn't know how to deal with it. You take it yourself. You look for somebody to blame. You're trying to look for some reasoning. And for many families, matter of fact, approximately 12 families a day, they face the same questions I did because they just lost someone that lost their battle with depression or mental health, or they made a decision to end their lives, and many of the loved ones that loved them dearly didn't have an opportunity to be able to not only save them, but just tell them one more time that they love them. I went to my pastor about 4 years later, and I said, I've been in church since I was a kid. And I said to him, I showed up at his door at one of our large churches here, and I said, I need you to know that I'm really angry with God right And he looked me right in the face and he said, just as long as you know God isn't angry with you. And I didn't understand what he was saying, but I think what he was trying to do was create a connection point where we could at least have a dialogue. And we had that conversation about why I was angry and why I was lost my birth parents and why I was raped when I was a small child and why I had this learning disability and why I went through all this darkness and why would I lose somebody that was so important to me and that I love so dearly. And I didn't realize it, but I finally realized it when he was introducing me to many of the kind of stories that were never connectable to me when I was a child going to church. He said to me one day, he said, why do you think Jesus picked people that were so broken? And I said, I don't know. He said, would you be able to relate to perfection? I said, oh God, no. And he said, that's why. I select people that are broken so that they are relatable and that people are able to see themselves in those individuals. And it clicked to me. As I said, I would never want anyone to have my life in regards to the experiences that I have. But I finally realized that I was not being punished, but I was being prepared. Prepared for what? I wasn't sure. But I was being prepared to be able to serve. I was able to serve on volunteer boards at Ontario Shores. I was able to use my voice in regards to what addiction looks like and mental health. I was able to talk to parents that had lost loved ones through suicide. I was able to sit and listen, and they knew in my heart that I understood the pain that they were going through and did not judge anyone because of the reason that I am a person that has no right to judge anyone. In 2014, I ended up putting my name on a ballot with no expectations of winning. But as you get closer to election day, David will tell you this. We go from, putting our name onto a ballot to really wanting to win. And I was elected in 2014 as a regional and city councilor with the third highest vote count. And that absolutely shocked me. And I bet you it happened to David too. That first time we're elected, it is so emotionally overwhelming. We just break down. But we understand that this is the moment that we've been prepared for. You know, I always like to joke that for 25 years, I was a television host. I interviewed people. And one of the great things about interviewing people is I don't have a formal education. So I interviewed people and I got my formal education out of people that are a lot smarter than me. And an old friend of mine, Mr. Jim Flaherty, that used to be the finance minister of Canada, said to me, he said, Danny, you need to know an inch thick about everything. And he said, so prepare yourself to be able to find an inch thick about everything. And so that's what I did as a television host. Now, I always tell the story that as a television host, I was a pretty big TV star. I had 7, 8, maybe 9 people sometimes watching my show every single night. Now, that included my mom and dad, by the way. But I enjoyed it, and I had an opportunity to truly be able to learn from others. But the reason why I tell you why I worked in television is because it took me to a night when some 15 years ago, we opened up a brand new hockey arena in Oshawa called, at the time, it was called the GM Center. And I was asked, along with a gentleman named Joe Tilley, that was a sportscaster at CTV and a friend of mine, and another gentleman named Terry Johnson, if I would join them in opening it up in a black tie affair. And I remember the night, it was a cold night. And I pulled up because they gave us a VIP pass. And there was a young college student that was sitting there, and it was so cold, and he had a windbreaker on and no gloves. And when I pulled up, I said, I showed my pass, and he said, oh, Mr. Carter, good to see you. Thank you very much. We have a parking space down here. I said, where's your gloves? He said, well, Mr. Carter, he said, I'm a college student. He says, I got enough money for beer, but not gloves. So it's either one or the other. And I said to him, I said, you're going to freeze. And I said, how long are you here to? He says, well, to the end of the night. I said, listen, and I had a pair of gloves on the side of my seat. And I said, here, wear my gloves. Do me a favor, wear them, and then send them back to me or keep them or give them away. Do whatever you want to do, but you got to wear my gloves. He said, Mr. Carter, I really appreciate it. He put the gloves on. We went in, opened up the thing, beautiful night, cut the ribbon, looked beautiful. And about 3 weeks later, I got a phone call at the television station. And the receptionist said, there's some guy on the phone to talk to you about gloves. I said, what? Yeah, some guy said something about gloves. I don't know if he's selling them or doing something with them. Do you want to talk to him? I said, sure. Let me talk to him. And I answered the phone. He said, hi, Mr. Carter. He says, I don't know if you remember me, but I'm the young college student that took your VIP pass at the General Motors Center and you lent me your gloves. I said, oh, how you doing? He said, I'm doing great. I said, what time did you have to work? He said, we worked almost 11 o'clock. And he said, man, it was cold that night. I really appreciate the gloves. And I said, well, that's beautiful. He said, I can't send the gloves back to you. And I said, don't worry about it. I said, keep them, if you need them, not a problem, give them away, whatever else. He said, well, Mr. Carter, he said, when I left the General Motors Center and I was walking to the bus shelter, he said, I saw somebody sleeping in one of the vestibules and he didn't have any gloves. So I gave him yours. Ordinary actions, extraordinary impacts. I'm probably one of the most blessed individuals that have had the opportunity to be as broken as I am, to have an opportunity to be able to serve in the role that I have. And I've been very public about it because of the reason that I want people to understand that even as public figures, even as mayors, we are imperfect individuals. We put our name on a ballot and we hope to do our best. And we try and take the best advice we possibly can to serve the public because we truly believe the gifts, the talents, and the skills that we have can make our community better. But it's moments like that that change our lives, that remind us that small actions can make a huge impact. I do a thing when I speak live. Matter of fact, I'm going to be the keynote speaker at the National Day of Prayer in Toronto on April 3rd to 1,000 people. Now, I'm not going to be able to do it at 1,000 people, but I started an organization called the Day of Hope and Leadership, and we ran it for 10 years. And I asked 6 of my friends that were professional speakers if they would donate their time and skills. And we raised money for an organization called Caria Community Health Center. And we donated close to $1 million over that 10 years to be able to provide after school programs and programs for youth that come from high needs areas. They were individuals that may be facing generational poverty. And we really love this program. But one year I wanted to find out if I was really making a difference. So we had 350 people in the room and we gave out 350 envelopes with a $20 bill in it. And I asked everybody to take the $20 challenge. And the $20 challenge went like this. I've just given you $20. I want you to take the next 24 or 48 hours and send out as many emails or talk to people and ask them if they'll match the $20. And then I want you to take the money and I want you to give it away unconditionally to whatever cause you want. But I've just handed out $7,000 and I want to see if we truly are embracing what we talked about today, about generosity and kindness and compassion and finding a way to be able to make sure that those that don't have a voice understand they're being heard. I said, I want to see what we can do. Now, one is I wanted to see if we were actually getting through to people, or was it just another day off work and they were just coming to hear people and they were sleeping in the background. And to my surprise, in 48 hours, out of $7,000, close to $100,000 was raised and given. I was in Cornwall just recently to talk to the Children's Treatment Center, 650 people for breakfast at 6:30 in the morning. I don't know what they're doing up at 6:30 in the morning. They're up at 6:30 in the morning having breakfast. 650 of them. And I picked one person out of the audience to do the same thing. Gave him a $20 bill. He was a police officer. and they raised thousands of dollars. Don't tell me that ordinary actions don't have extraordinary impacts. Just coming together and giving individuals like myself and David and others an opportunity to share our journey with you. I hope that it does a few things. I hope, one, that you see that we truly believe in each and every one of you, because we truly believe that together we can accomplish almost anything, even in the most complex moments. I also hope that it demonstrates that each and every day we have an opportunity to influence and impact somebody's life. A kind word, a good morning, a smile, someone that's homeless that you look at and smile and say good morning. Say hi to somebody on the elevator you've never said hi to. Each one of us have the opportunity to truly impact somebody's life today. Tonight I'm here, so hopefully some of the things that I've shared with you, I hope that it has lifted you up and not suppressed you down. I hope that it's shown you that recovery is possible, that redemption is possible, and that forgiveness is possible. And even in the highest offices that we hold, we are still broken individuals trying our best. You know, we have a mayor in Toronto right now going through a very difficult period of time. And I'm reminded of myself that I too am a broken individual. I've made mistakes in my life. And out of forgiveness and redemption, that I have had the opportunity now to be the mayor for the great city of Oshawa. And I can't believe it. And I get to talk to a group like you. I'm here tonight because of the reason that I want to deposit my experiences in your life. And hopefully, if you are going through something, do me a favor. Talk to a friend. Just talk to somebody. And if you have a friend that's going through something, or a coworker, or a neighbor, the best thing we can do is listen. Not pass judgment. Just listen. You know, David and myself, we experienced something through COVID that I loved. You know, through the early days of COVID, people were knocking on neighbors' doors that they had never talked to before just to find out if they were okay. We picked up groceries for people we didn't know. We went outside and hit pots and pans at 8 o'clock so that we could let the healthcare workers know we cared about them. We said thank you to cashiers. We thanked our garbage men by putting notes. We painted rocks and put them on trails. We had teddy bear displays and parades in our windows. We had community dinners where we all brought our chairs and our card tables to the end of our driveway and had dinner together for the very first time. We showed the best that we could possibly be in the early days of COVID. Let us not forget about that. Let us not allow darkness and anger and fear and division to come into us. This is a moment that all of us are prepared for, and this is a moment that all of us have our own stories, our own journeys, our own skills, our own abilities, our own giftings, that we truly can make a difference in somebody's life. And that's what tonight's about. So on behalf of the great city of Oshawa, I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to join you this evening. And I hope that you found the last, oh boy, I guess I've gone too long. I hope that you found it informative, uplifting, encouraging, and I hope you leave optimistic. So thank you so much for the opportunity to join you this evening.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I know we probably all are like, you just need a few seconds, minutes, actually more, to absorb all the, I don't know, impressions I'm sitting with. And I can't tell you how grateful I am that we got this opportunity. I can't tell Susan how grateful I am that she mentioned that she had heard you speak. You brought compassion to life like never before through the many examples and parts of you, who you are. You brought your humanity, you brought our humanity to the forefront. And yes, filled with hope. It did touch, it was emotional, because I can tell you from my own perspective, there's a lot of those things that I could relate to. And the gratitude, the forgiveness, how do you rise after? And what you're doing now, how do you give back? All amazing lessons. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm gonna let Marge.
Yeah, I think David's anxious just to say something as a mayor. And David, we're going to put some pressure on you to do something. So we'll lead off and then we'll put the pressure on you.
Sorry, David.
That's okay. Listen, the bar needs to be set, and then we need to aspire to the bar. No, thank you, Mayor Carter. That was. I mean, I knew this was going to be good, but that was well beyond a great inspiration. Thank you so much. That was. I mean, I can certainly understand on many, many levels, and I really appreciate, in particular, the words about, we can't be overrun by all of the negativity that sometimes surrounds us. And I mean, your story is, I mean, if there was ever a doubt, your story is the way to combat that. But, I think it is fantastic that we have so much potential in our communities that, all leaders, and not just elected leaders like you and I, but the leaders that are in this call today too, have such potential and energy and inspiration that we can draw from each other to do really fantastic things in our community. So in terms of pressuring me, Marge, bring it on. And and because we'll share it with everybody, right? I mean, it's no one person does all of this stuff. But Mayor Carter, thank you so much. I cannot wait to meet you in person. So the first opportunity, I'm there.
I look forward to it, David, and keep up the great work.
Thank you. Well, likewise.
Thank you, sir.
So we have like 15 minutes. I feel there are people who would love to have some questions. So can you use that chat reaction? And Dan, we'd appreciate if you could just take some questions. Anyone questions there? Are we all numbed? Jane, it looked like you were going to ask a question. You're on mute.
Yes, actually, I do. Thank you so much indeed for this astounding presentation. So I have a question about politics and politics is really difficult. And as you probably well know, and I'm interested in whether the narrative has changed in Oshawa. I mean, how are people responding to the reality of social challenges that exist in your communities?
Frustrated and angry, fed up. It's been a difficult task as the mayor in making decisions in regards to finding the right balance. We're a lower tier government, so social service, housing, healthcare is an upper tier, and so it is very, very difficult to be able to find that balance. What I have tried to do is find that balance between my compassion and understanding and my journey, and also find solutions in regards to moving forward. It's been difficult. I'll be honest with you, and I'll give you an example if you don't mind. When Barack Obama was elected, I'm a great fan and a student of Martin Luther King. And I just love that he was a great orator. I liked that he was imperfect. I liked that he was passionate. I liked that he had a vision. He was just an incredible individual, in my opinion, and it's somebody that I really admire. And when Barack Obama got elected, I looked at Barack Obama and said, "That's the next king," and that was unfair. I was trying to compare him to someone. And Maclean's magazine came out, did an interview with me when I first became mayor, and said, from his brokenness, can he fix this city? And it was like, holy smokes. And then, of course, 3 days before I was elected into office, we lost a company that was here for 110 years, which was General Motors. It affected thousands of people. It was unbelievable. The struggle is your duty as an elected official and mayor and trying to do the right things. And on the other side is understand the struggles of individuals with mental health and addiction and try and make sure that we have the right pathway forward. And that has been a difficulty because you have to straddle both sides of the equation. But I never forget that it is somebody's kid and we have to do everything we possibly can. So we've reached out to communities across Canada about best practices. We've created outreach programs. We've got something called the PCOP program where it's called PCOP, which is the primary care outreach program with a paramedic and a social worker. We've got MHOP, which has got 2 mental health workers that are going out. We have a microhome project that we brought in. Oshawa did. This is stuff that we advocated for. We created hubs in the early days of COVID. Matter of fact, it was in April of 2020. We opened up our first hub that had a doctor, a nurse, a psychological nurse, regional support, housing support. We opened up Camp Samac and housed 100 people. We were really stretching the boundaries. The population we're dealing with now, it's been frustrating. Prime example is we put public washrooms out on our streets and the population lit them all on fire. And that was really problematic. We then invested in at our hub to be able to build washrooms and showers. We're still struggling to try and find the pathway forward. And you have to wear both of those hats. You have to wear the hat that you are truly committed in regards to those that are less fortunate, and you also have to be sympathetic and empathetic in regards to our business community and the impact that they're having. And that's been very difficult. I'll be very honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think all of us mayors are. You know, somebody said to me one time, they said, "So what are you, conservative, liberal, NDP?" I said, I have a big socialist heart, right? So I'm very much. I'm very fiscally responsible, so I guess I'm conservative. And I got a lot of liberal friends, so I don't know who I am. So, that's about the honest to God truth, because all of us and David makes these same decisions. We make the right decisions at the right times for the right reasons, not based upon whose policy. We're just trying to find solutions to be able to help those that are the most impacted in our community. So, Jane, to be absolutely honest, it's a struggle. Some days we do really, really well. Some days we don't, but we still have a long journey to go. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, no, I've been involved in homelessness over the years, and I'm just interested in there have been enormous efforts made over the years, but I don't see us heading in the right direction at this particular point.
We're not.
And so I don't necessarily think that we have upstream thinking, prevention thinking in the way that maybe we should, or how systems, when systems fail, when policies fail upstream, that has huge implications. And I don't think people understand the level of trauma that exists in the community, which combines with all these difficult situations. And so, to your point, it's very complex, but I'm saddened to see the way things are, and because it just gets harder and harder.
What you should know, Jane, is that Big City Mayor's Caucus, we've been asking for a meeting with the Premier and the Health Minister for, I think, close to a year, David. When the first conversation came up and the request happened, we still haven't had that meeting. The Big City Mayor's Caucus has a plan that we're willing to share and, matter of fact, do the heavy lifting, but we do need the province to be there for us. One of the things that we've done with our social housing file is we're taking a different philosophy, and our philosophy is at that level with our RGI units, we're looking at it not just about housing people, but investing in people. So we're looking at ways of how do we identify people in our housing sites, Let's find out about them. Let's figure out what are the gaps that they have in their lives. How do we help them through that process? And I'm really proud about the work that we've done. That we brought in, some jobs programs into our housing sites. We brought the $9 internet for our people. We got insurance for people. We took passive states, made them active. We brought computers in so that people could actually work on them and put resumes. We're identifying individuals that want to go back to school and getting them into school and finding daycare for them and getting transportation. There are ideas in regards to how we can solve it. But what we have to understand is we didn't get here in 4 years. We're not going to get out of it in 4 years. And I think too many times people are, I know enough about David that it's not about a 4-year cycle. It's about doing the right thing at the right time for the right reasons. So let's create a plan that it may take 10 years, but let us get started and let us do the right things. Do you know, we on the front lines in municipalities know the impact on a daily basis. We know the investments that are needed from the experts that we've talked to that work in this field, and we've seen it. Prime example is we keep on sending people on overdoses to the wrong hospital. We take them to a generalist hospital. Down the street, we have Ontario Shores, one of the best mental health hospitals in Canada. And we're trying to now expand it. So it's a Schedule I hospital for addiction and mental health calls. So they go there. And they're created a program called Empath. And that Empath will actually be able to see a patient within a 20-minute period, release police and paramedics, and be able to deal with them with professional psychologists, psychiatrists, and addiction specialists, instead of us trying to figure out a generalist to deal with it. That's one of the solutions. But there's many solutions that experts have that we can actually do. But we've got to have the partnership of the provincial government and the federal government. And like David will be able to confirm this, we have been saying this is a national health epidemic and crisis. We can no longer ignore it. And our frustration is the premier, the prime minister has not recognized that it's a national health crisis. And until we do so, we're not going to find the solutions. The last thing is we found the resources necessary to make sure that COVID was taken care of. We found the money. We found the resources. We did the things that were very uncomfortable. Let's get uncomfortable again.
I'm looking at time. We have one more question we can take,
sorry.
and then we're gonna have to. No apologies. I think all of us are very captivated by what you have to say. So, is there someone else who wants to raise their hand for a question? Oh, Scott. Yes, Scott's a counselor. So, anyways.
Hey, Scott.
Hi, Dan. Thank you very much. Your speech was very inspiring. I do have a couple of quick questions because it does sound like you had to really hit rock bottom before you could come back. And I guess this is one of the difficulties is that we see there are a lot of outreach programs and services that are trying to reach individuals. And I'm getting the impression that there's just some people who feel they haven't hit rock bottom yet, and they're refusing those services. How do we get to those individuals?
Real fast. There was an example. I spoke at an organization called DeHafta that works out of Toronto. That's an outreach program run by the Jewish community. And they do street outreach and been doing it for 20 something years. And they reminded me that every night they would go see a guy in the Bloor Viaduct area for 9 years to try and convince him to accept the help. And it took 9 years for him to accept the help. The biggest thing, what we're dealing with are individuals, those individuals, and we have them here, Scott. We have about 120 individuals, males between the ages of 25 and 35 that want nothing to do with our services. We've housed over 300 people that have asked for help, and we've found help for them. The individuals that don't want help, is it comes down to a couple things. It's like being a salesman. You got to make a cold call every day. You got to keep on knocking on the door. And one of the biggest things is trust. You have to build trust. And that's why outreach workers and the people that are on the front lines, this is why we went to the faith community and said, please just don't give out sandwiches. If you want to help, work with the agencies and support them, because that one moment that we're handing out a sandwich is a connection piece. We get to know their name. We say, oh boy, that looks like a bad cut on your arm. Why don't we see if we can get somebody to look at it? It's a connection piece. It starts to build trust. And that's what we have to do. It's like cold calling every single day. And the frustration is throughout those cold calls, you could do it 125 times, and there may be only one that will accept it. And that's where the difficulty is. Those that are seeking assistance, and I can speak on in my community, we're actually able to navigate the system and help them. We don't have programs that are long enough in regards to recovery that need to be expanded. So we need to fix that portion of it. But those individuals, Scott, we've got to just keep on asking and keep on pushing them. You have a follow-up?
Yeah, okay, I'm looking at the time, it's 8:27. Sarah has to go off to do something, so we just have a few more minutes.
Okay.
Is there any, Susan Kagan, do you want to have a thank you, a wrap up? As a mental health worker, I feel like you should be saying some wise words.
Well, I don't know if they'll be wise after hearing their Carter talk. I feel humbled, if anything, like really humbled, even though I heard you speak 4 years ago with Bahafta. I work with them directly, so I'm humbled. I'm inspired. I'm motivated. I'm hoping the rest of our group feels the same way, and we just want to get this going. Just keep going, keep tugging along, and do our little bit. One thing that bothers me, and I always hesitate to say this, I don't expect you to answer. Why can't we pull out our OHIP card and get mental health care? This is such a big issue for me. I think it's missing. People can't get care.
I agree.
I mean, yeah. And I don't know why that's a problem. I mean, it's hell.
I think there's, Susan, first of all, I appreciate the question. I think the reality being is it's a couple things. One is we don't have the strategic investments in regards to where they were necessary for a long period of time. Number two, I don't believe that we have the amount of talent and skills that is ready to go into that profession at this particular time. It's not a profession that's looked upon as, sexy or any of those kind of things. The individuals that work in mental health are really special individuals. And, they're hard. It's like outreach workers. It's hard to find really good outreach workers. But I think what we can do as a group is we've got to take whatever position that we have, whatever organizations we're involved in, and we have to make sure that our MPs and our MPPs understand this is a moment of crisis. This is a moment that we need them to use the influence that they have in regards to a national health crisis. Because if we don't do it right now, it is the catastrophic effects of us doing what we're doing right at this particular time. The data shows you that we're losing more and more people every single year. And we've got to do better. We have to do better. And the reality being is we can do better. We've got people that are dedicated, but we absolutely need everybody's voice at the table to be able to say no more excuses, no more, what do they call them? Boomerang announcements. I announced it last Thursday, I'm going to announce it this Thursday. We need people to really make these decisions. And I know that David and Scott and myself and anybody that's elected is going to do what we can, but we need your help too. So please use your voice and make sure your MPs and your MPPs, and don't allow them to say, yeah, we're trying our best. Well, what do you mean you're trying? Tell us what you're doing. Support things like the Empath program at Ontario Shores. Support really good outreach programs. Let's have proper programs that give people a fair opportunity to be able to recover. And I think that if we're able to do that and understand that it's going to be expensive, it's going to be labor intense, it's going to be disappointing sometimes, but the rate of success is going to be better than what we have right now. We can't keep on doing what we're doing. It's not working. So, Susan, I hope I answered your question.
You did, and I thank you for that. And I want to thank you, all of us, from the bottom of our hearts, for spending your time with us tonight. Your words of wisdom, your inspiration, your story have all been so valuable. So thank you from all of us.
Thank you. Invite me back to the Hafta, will you please?
Yes.
All right. You're a good group.
We're going strong.
No,
We're really
not
going strong. The need is so great.
beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you
Okay,
so
so-
very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We do need to wrap up, but I'm gonna, because we're talking about this, coldest night of the year is
Yep.
February 25th, next Saturday. There's probably one in Oshawa.
There is.
Okay, I haven't looked at the scoreboard, but I think Richmond Hill is ahead of Oshawa. So if all of you could just support that cause, that's just they're doing some good work. I do pay attention to what they're doing. I'm the committee chair for the coldest night of the year, so I'm doing what I can, and it's there's such a need. But you've inspired all of us. I feel I'm thinking like for myself, I feel inadequate. I feel like I got to do a heck of a lot more, and I will be talking to David tomorrow. So yeah, so keep in touch, and thank you again. I feel very, very fortunate for you to have joined this group. So
Thank you. I just have to apologize to David. Sorry.
yeah, okay. So we do have another happy to chat bench. We wanted to talk about that, but just it's happening. I heard you heard about it, 10. So we need to happen in Oshawa as well. And we will have our second one. So we'll invite everyone to come to sit on our second happy to chat bench very soon. So yeah, that's happening. So we're moving ahead. We're doing what we can, but obviously we need to do more. So, okay. Sarah, did you want to close?
Well, just wanted to say thank you to everyone in attendance. Thank you for taking your time out, and let us take this inspiration and spread it however we can.
Yeah.
Thank you for a very good night.
Okay.
Be well, everybody.